in this video, I'm gonna show you how I made a transformation from looking like this, getting all the way down to 10% body fat, and the only change I made to exercise was walking. I'm gonna explain why you should be utilizing walking, methods to increase your step, including ways that don't even take extra time out of your day, and tell you how much walking you should be doing to get that shredded look. Now, before I get into why I think you should be walking over other forms of cardio, I wanna make a couple things very clear. One, the change was introducing more walking, but clearly I was strength training before that and continue to do so afterwards. You're not gonna get a shredded muscular look without strength training. And of course, nutrition matters. You can't just eat whatever you want and expect to get results, but don't worry, I'll show you at the end of the video how to create the perfect calorie deficit. Okay, as far as why I recommend walking and truly think it's the best form of exercise you can utilize to get a shredded look, well, there's a few reasons. One is when you get this lean, it looks good, but I'm telling you, it does not feel good. And it's gonna be important to protect your energy levels as much as possible. When you're in a calorie deficit and you're training hard, and with less body fat, you have less energy reserves, and trying to do things like high intensity interval training, while it certainly burns a lot more calories in a shorter period of time, it's very hard to recover from. It's gonna beat you into the ground. The whole no pain, no gain mentality just doesn't go well. Trust me, I've tried to do the HIIT thing. It didn't go well. Plus, what can happen without even realizing it is you get so tired from this high intensity training that you end up moving less throughout the rest of your day without even realizing it, and you compensate for those extra calories burned, and you don't net any difference. The other benefit of lower intensity forms of cardio is your body's gonna preferentially use fat to fuel that performance, whereas with higher intensity, it's gonna preferentially utilize carbohydrates. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or you don't lose fat that way, but to tap directly into your fat stores, utilizing walking is a great way to do this. And the nice thing about walking is it's easy to do. You have a lot of different options. Sure, you can go out for walks outside, but even if the weather isn't good, you can go to a gym on a treadmill, you can walk around in a mall, you can get a treadmill for your home. There's always ways to get walking in almost no matter what the circumstances. Now, I'm gonna get into how much walking you should do, but before I do that, I wanna cover ways you can increase your steps. Now, of course, the obvious answer is just go out for long walks. Go out for a half hour, hour-long walk most days a week. Your step counts are gonna get pretty high, but that can be tricky to fit into your schedule, which I do recommend scheduling in your walks. If you don't schedule in when you're gonna do these things, you're probably busy. It's too easy for that time to slip away and it gets away from you. If you have a dog, take your dog for frequent walks. They'll love you for it. Our lives nowadays have convenience everywhere, which of course is great, but it can make it hard to stay active. So you can do some things like taking the stairs instead of an elevator, parking your car at the end of a parking lot. Instead of getting things delivered from Amazon or your groceries delivered, go to the actual physical stores and do these things. If you have a sedentary job like me, while you're working, set a timer every hour that goes off and you're gonna get up and you're just gonna walk around for 2 or 3 minutes. And this not only helps break up the monotony, helps your body stay loose, but it'll help you get a bunch of extra steps in. When you're doing your workouts, do a warm up with a 10-minute walk and a cool down with a 10-minute walk. And it can also be a great strategy to take post-meal 10-minute walks as well to help digest the food and get some extra steps in. But a lot of that can feel kind of intimidating. So here's some strategies you probably haven't thought of that can help you get more steps in without taking away from what you're already doing in your life. Take a look at your life and determine some areas where you're normally sitting, but you could be up and moving around if you really wanted to. So for instance, for me, my son plays soccer. We go to his games. A lot of times we're just sitting there before the game starts. There's a halftime for 10 to 15 minutes. So what I do now is I try to get up and I walk during halftime. Even at home, I do a lot of grilling out back. We've got a pool in the backyard. I can just walk around this pool while the food's cooking. A lot of times I'll get an extra 1,000 steps in during time that I was gonna be out there anyways, normally just standing around or sitting waiting for the food to cook. Especially if you're someone who spends a lot of time on the phone, a lot of times you're just sitting there talking on the phone. Get up, walk around while you're on the phone, you're being productive, you're getting steps in, and you're not taking additional time. So just look at your life. When are you normally sitting where you don't have to be sitting? And you wouldn't believe how many opportunities there are. On top of that, especially if you work from home, you wanna make a bigger investment. If you had a standing desk and you got one of those walking pads, you could be walking while you're working. Or even if you just like to catch up on your favorite TV shows, if you have a walking pad or a treadmill at home, you could be watching those shows while you're getting your steps in. Okay, let's get into how many steps you should be taking. And before I get into that though, if you could do me a favor, and trust me, I never asked for this. I get a lot of comments about how I should get way more views than I do. If you want to support me, could you just like this video real quick? It would help me out. I'd appreciate it. Okay, so I'm not only going to talk about how many steps you should take, but I'm going to talk about how you should start, how you should progress as you hit plateaus, and not only through additional steps, but also different ways you can progress. Because remember, there's metabolic adaptation. Your body's going to adapt to what you do, and you need to make changes to keep the process working. So when you're going to start your cut, what I used to always say is aim between about 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day. And that's not necessarily bad advice, but the thing is, your body's already going to be adapted to whatever you normally do. If you have a more active job, maybe you already average 10,000 steps a day. I remember when I first started doing this, this, I was shocked that I was only averaging about 2,000 steps a day. So what I recommend instead is spend the next week, continue to do what you normally do, but now you're gonna track your steps and see what your average looks like. If you already have this, great, you can skip this step. But then once you know what your average is, then what you're gonna do is increase your daily step count by between about 3,000 to 5,000 steps per day, which of course this is a little bit different for everyone, but I usually find that that's around 30 to 50 minutes of walking. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be the same every single day. It's just an average for the week. So if you have extra free time, say on the weekends, if you wanna do more walking on the weekends so you can do less on other days of the week, that's perfectly fine. There's no rule that says you have to get exactly 10,000 steps every single day. And then as far as how to progress from there, especially as you're hitting plateaus, you don't necessarily have to increase your steps right away, but you can increase the intensity of those steps. So maybe you started with just normal, regular walking, and then you increase to more brisk walking. Maybe you take a step further and you're using a treadmill that has an incline and you bring the incline up. When I started, I did start flat, then went to about a 3 incline and then a 4.5. And I think I ended around like a 6 or a 7 incline, and probably started my speed from around 3 miles per hour to about 3.5 miles per hour. And one thing I do recommend is you can watch the calories burned on your treadmill, not to use that number as this is how many calories I'm burning, because those are highly inaccurate. It's just to give you a general idea of how to progress. So if initially you were getting about 300 calories burned, eventually you want to step it up. Maybe down the road, you're gonna be getting 400 calories burned. Now you know the intensity is picking up, or you're getting more steps in to get that extra calorie burn. But to simplify it, you can just increase steps. Say you hit a plateau, well then you just increase your steps by about another 2,000 or 3,000. It just kind of depends. You can not only increase activity, but you can also decrease calories, or some combination of the two, which is what I typically recommend. Which, speaking of that, like I mentioned in the beginning, walking alone is not going to do it. Your nutrition is incredibly important. So to find out how to change your nutrition to create the perfect calorie deficit, make sure you check out this video up here next, and I'll walk you through everything you need to know, and I'll see you in that other video.